Welcome to the Collide Kids podcast, hosted by Christen Clark. This is a show for kids and families. You are going to meet new people and have fun while you listen. Let's do it!
This episode is sponsored by SchoolhouseTeachers.com. Keep the fun rolling throughout the summer with SchoolhouseTeachers.com. There is no need to slow down on your child's education. Simply switch gears, giving them something to be excited about. Educate and entertain your kids at the same time by selecting their favorite electives during the summer months. Use code BUMBLEBEE during the SchoolhouseTeachers.com Bumblebee sale to pay only $30 for an ultimate quarterly membership, and the entire family will immediately receive access to all that SchoolhouseTeachers.com has to offer. Pick and choose activities like fun printouts for little ones to enjoy and outdoor science-based crafts that are fun for the whole family. Keep your kids as busy as bees with a SchoolhouseTeachers.com membership so that you can relax this summer. New members only, no refunds. Go to SchoolhouseTeachers.com to learn more. It's a honey of a deal. Hey y'all, welcome to the Collide Kids podcast. I'm your host, Christen Clark. The Collide Kids podcast is a show for kids and families where we learn together how life and faith collide. I am so glad you are listening today, and I hope you are having an incredible summer. If you're new, I just want to say welcome. Thank you so much for checking this out. I'm so glad you're here, and I hope you stick around. Hey, be sure to listen to the very end of every episode. That's where we have our kids-only segment where kids just like you get to be on the podcast to tell jokes or their favorite verse or something like that. So speaking of jokes, I found some jokes today I want to share with you. Some of them are summer jokes. These are just really fun, and I thought they were so funny, and I thought today would be a good day to share them with you. But before I share my jokes with you, I have two important things to tell you. First of all, we have one more episode next week, and then we're taking a little break in the month of July. There's just a lot of things happening with my family traveling for the summer, and I'm actually doing summer school and have a lot of things going on. So it was just a really good idea to take a break. So in the month of July, I hope you'll get to catch up on a lot of good episodes. So that's the first thing I want to tell you. We're taking a little break in the month of July. And then number two, our guest next week before we take a break is Scott Hamilton. Yeah, Scott Hamilton, the Olympic champion, the figure skater. He's a cancer survivor, TV broadcaster, motivational speaker, and just a really big optimist. He has such an incredible story, and I cannot wait for you to hear it, so don't miss next week. Okay, it's joke time. Are you ready? Here we go. Here's the first one. Why do fish swim in salt water? Why do fish swim in salt water? Because pepper water would make them sneeze. I thought that was funny. Okay, let's do another one. Here we go. What is a frog's favorite summertime treat? Hopsicles. Get it? Instead of popsicles, it's hopsicles. Okay, that one's kind of corny. Okay, let's do another one. When is a door not a door? When it's a jar. Get it? So now anytime someone opens the door, you can use that joke. When is a door not a door? When it's a jar. Okay, here's last one. Here we go. What is the difference between a poorly dressed man on a tricycle and a well-dressed man on a bicycle? Let me say that again. What's the difference between a poorly dressed man on a tricycle and a well-dressed man on a bicycle? A tire. Get it? Sorry, that one made me laugh a little too hard earlier. Okay, well, these are way too corny. I apologize, but you feel free to use these as often as you like. Let me just tell you about my guest today. Her name is Hannah Logan, and she is the oldest of 6 children who were all homeschooled for their entire grade school years. In 2011, her family started traveling as a bluegrass gospel family band and had the opportunity to play music and to travel to Ukraine, Spain, Colombia, Canada, and across most of the United States to various churches. How fun does that sound? Currently, she lives in Alabama with her husband and enjoys writing, volunteering in her local church, blogging, teaching the fiddle, and working with the Old Schoolhouse magazine as one of their newest team members. I'm really excited for you to hear this conversation with Hannah Logan. Hi, Hannah. How are you today? Thank you so much for being on the Collide Kids podcast.
Thank you, Kristen. I'm excited to be here.
Good. Well, we are going to learn a lot about you today, and I'm really excited to hear your story. So will you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes, of course. My name is Hannah Logan, and I just recently got married back in November of 2020 to my husband.
Congrats.
Benjamin. Thank you. And I moved from Texas to Alabama. I'm the oldest of 6 children. I have 5 younger brothers, which is a lot of fun. They're actually all taller than me now, which has been an adventure. But I'm originally from Canada, but we moved to Texas in 2007 when I was 9 for my dad's business. And we were homeschooled through all of our grade school. And then once I graduated in 2016, I started college at Arizona State University online and graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Organizational Leadership and a minor in business. So in the midst of that, we were learning our instruments and actually started a bluegrass gospel family band and started traveling all over the U.S. and to different countries on missions trips and just to different churches playing music. And it was a pretty neat experience. So
That's incredible. What was the name of your band?
Just the Doucettes. It was our last name.
Oh, your last
super
name.
Original. Yeah.
Oh, that's still cool. That's awesome. Okay. Well, I want to hear all about this. And I love bluegrass music, by the way. So before we start with your story, I do have to tell you, this is a podcast for kids. So we always like to start out with a joke. Do you have a joke you want to share with us today?
I do. My brothers love jokes. What is brown and sticky?
What is brown and sticky? I don't know.
A stick. It's super corny.
I love that one because it makes them think too hard for it. And it's just
exactly.
That's a good one. I like it. Awesome. Okay. So let's start out with moving from Canada. So you grew up in Canada?
I did.
What
yes,
part?
I'm Canadian. British Columbia.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was that like to move from Canada to Texas?
It was really different. I was 9, so I was a bit younger, and I feel like that made the transition a little bit easier. If I had been older, I think it would have been a bit harder. But we lived in the middle of nowhere on a lake, really close to a lake in Canada, and then moving to Houston, Texas was a big difference just because Houston is huge. And but it was a great transition, and I look back and I can just see God's hand through it. Especially just because he placed us in a church in Texas that really fostered our love for music and our group as we got started. Our pastor had so much grace with us as we were learning, and he really just pushed us to become better and really try to reach our full potential as musicians and just as people and individually. So
that's awesome. So you all played an instrument?
We did, which is really neat. People ask us often how my parents did that because we each played different instruments. I played the fiddle and I sang, and then the Holton, we're all H's, so it gets confusing. But Holton was the one just younger than me, and he played mandolin and guitar, and he actually has won awards with his instruments.
Wow.
And then the next one was Hudson. He played the banjo, and he actually won nationals in banjo, which was pretty awesome.
That's
and
cool.
Then Hayden played the bass, the upright bass. Harlan plays guitar, and Hanson plays the fiddle as well.
Wow. And do your parents play instruments?
My dad did play an instrument years ago, and then he doesn't really now. He was our sound guy and our chauffeur. So
nice.
Yeah, we traveled in a bus, and so my dad drove the bus, and that was a lot of fun.
So how did your parents do that, to teach all of you a different instrument, or did you take lessons from someone else?
We actually had a music school at our church once a year, and our pastor really really pushed that and encouraged the kids in our church to learn instruments. And so we would take a lot of videos and practice throughout the year on the stuff that we learned in that 1 week. And as far as the different instruments, we all just kind of were drawn to different instruments, and my parents just did their best to make the instruments we were interested in available to us, and just encourage us to learn and to keep progressing with the instruments we chose.
That's really cool. Do you know how to like play by ear, or do you read sheet music? How did that work?
We play by ear.
Wow.
We can sing a little bit from the notes, but mostly just by ear. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So you guys traveled around. What were some of your favorite places that you visited when you were traveling and doing this music thing?
Yeah, that's a hard one. We went to Spain several times, which was just incredible. We went on a couple missions trips there to a family that was missionaries. They were out of our church in Texas, so that was the connection, and just gorgeous. It's right on the Mediterranean, and just a different culture, which was really awesome. And then I loved Oregon. It was just beautiful. Just the natural beauty there was really neat.
That's very cool. And so did you travel year long, or just when you were in and out of school?
About 60% of the year, so not all the time we were home. My dad owns a business, and so he had to be home for some of the time, and a lot of it he could do from the road. But so about 60%.
That's awesome. So then you guys did homeschooling on the road.
We did, which was fun.
Yeah, I'm sure you're like, we're going to learn about Spain today. Look out your window.
Exactly. Firsthand.
That's right.
Yes.
So what was that like growing up in a big family and traveling and being with that family all the time? What was that like?
We always said that we were close whether we wanted to be or not.
You didn't have a choice.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. And we lived in a 45-foot bus a lot of the time. So just you're together all the time. I loved it, honestly. Me and my brothers are very close, so that did make it easier. I think that it would have been harder if we weren't close, but just made a lot of amazing memories. They're actually still traveling, and so they get to travel through here every now and again, and I get to see them, which is nice. But that's how I met my husband, was traveling. And you make so many memories. You meet so many amazing people at the churches we'd go to, the pastor and their family, and just make so many friends. And it was great. I really enjoyed it.
That's amazing. Tell me something that you loved about traveling. We'll be right back after this. You know, raising kids in the digital age isn't easy, but Bark Technology makes products that help parents keep their kids safe online and in real life. They have an app, a phone, and a home device that lets families set parental controls on their internet-connected devices. I love the app because it helps us manage screen time and blocks websites and apps we want our kids to avoid. It also sends alerts and gives us the ability to monitor texts and social media and even track your child's location. Visit bark.us to learn more about how you can keep your kids safe online. Use the code COLLIDEKIDS to get 15% off your subscription of the Bark app.
Honestly, probably just meeting so many people and just getting to see different places. We got to go to Niagara Falls. We got to see Mount Rushmore, and just some of those highlights, Grand Canyon, and going to the different countries was amazing. My parents always just recommend going on a missions trip if you can, because it just gives you that other perspective and helps you be thankful for what you have, but also appreciate differences, and just experience different cultures and realize that the world's bigger than your world. And I loved that. That was really neat.
That's awesome. What was something you didn't like about traveling?
Probably not a whole lot of privacy, especially when I started dating and trying to FaceTime, and it's just no privacy. But that's all just a part of it, and you get used to it. You learn to find your time, and you roll with it. And it definitely taught me flexibility, and just learning to to be flexible and go with the flow. And yeah, so I think that's, even though it was a con, I guess, you just learn to work with it.
Yeah. What were some of the songs that you guys would play?
There's so many. One of my favorites was a newer one that we learned. It was called The Greatest Thing. And I don't think it's a very well-known song, but a friend of ours, their friend wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of them. We would do All Along. We did a lot of different hymns. Yeah, there was a lot.
That's cool. So tell me a little bit about what you do now. You said your brothers some of them still travel. Now, what do you do?
So I just got married in November, so it's been about 6 months, and just trying to get settled. I actually teach online fiddle lessons. So I have about 9 students right now, and we just teach it over FaceTime, which is so neat because I've got students in Mississippi and Tennessee, Delaware, just kind of all over, which is really
wow.
neat. And I'm working on my own business. It's actually a homeschooling blog, and it's called myhappyhomeschooling.com. And then I'm also working for a homeschooling magazine, The Old School House. And that's one of my newest endeavors. So been excited about that. So
that's very cool. So tell me a little bit about why you think homeschooling helped so much with like what your family did.
Yeah, it gave us the flexibility. We weren't tied down to one place. We weren't tied down to a specific routine. And I think that was a good thing for us with traveling. With routine, I mean, we didn't have to be done by a certain day, that kind of thing. And we didn't have to be done by a certain time of day. So there were days when we only got in a couple subjects, and that was just the way it had to be. And then other days we had to, do two lessons in one, or just the flexibility it gave us. And I loved that. And that set me up for taking online classes in college. And I'm just grateful for that because it gave me the self-motivation that I needed to be successful with online college.
Yeah. Was this something that your parents, like, they taught you and then that's how you did your schooling, or was there another form of learning that you used?
We did Abeka online videos, so it had the structure there, and then my parents were just always there to make sure we were doing it and make sure we were doing it right, and help us when we needed it, but also give us the flexibility to learn from the videos on our own. So.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of families right now that have experienced homeschooling because of the pandemic,
Yes.
They didn't have a choice. And so we were all
sure.
kind of into that situation. And some students did not do very well, and some students did great. And they're thinking about going into homeschooling. What would you tell those families that are considering like continuing this form of education?
Yeah, I would always hear people ask my parents this question, and my dad just said, you just have to care. You really have to care and be willing to put in the time. Something I would add to that is just be willing to be consistent. It does take work, but also give yourself grace. That's one of the best parts of homeschooling, is being able to learn from your mistakes and keep going and see the big picture and realize that this too will pass, and you can keep working through it and try your best to be consistent.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I think a lot of people just need to be encouraged in that they don't have to have a PhD in any of the subjects. They just have to find the right way that their child can learn, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what you're doing with your blog. Like what do you want to do with your blog?
Yeah, I'm trying to create just practical resources and support for homeschoolers. So just talking about the things that helped me as a homeschooler going into college and just preparing for college. And I think a lot of parents are nervous about preparing their kids for the next step, and like, can we be successful and go on to the next stages? And because I did it, and I actually did go to a secular college, which I know is kind of controversial, but it was the right thing for us. And I was able to finish my degree. And I just think I want to encourage homeschoolers that it's possible, and that it is very doable. So
yeah,
that's kind of my goal.
Yeah, I love that. That we all kind of need encouragement sometimes, especially if you're doing something you're not familiar with. It's
Yeah.
good to hear of people that have succeeded and are on the other side of it that can just say, follow
Yes.
me. I've done this before. I know what it's like. I know it's
You've got
hard. I
this.
know it's fun. And so that's amazing. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about your bluegrass group. Is there a reason that you guys chose to start traveling? Like why? I know you said you started performing at your church. How did you guys start going around to other places?
Yeah, that actually happened very naturally. When our pastor started asking us to play regularly at our church, people would hear us at our church and then ask us to go to their church. And so it just kind of spread from there. And then you go to the church in Kentucky and there's other preachers there that ask you to come to theirs. And so it just kind of spread naturally. And within the independent Baptist world, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And from there, it just grew and grew. And there are times now when my dad will call preachers that we don't know on the way, just because we're on our way from one place to the next and there's a church in the middle kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
So it does spread that way to an extent. But yeah, really just meeting people and just networking that way.
That's interesting. And you guys just loved bluegrass music?
Yes, definitely.
What'd you love about it?
I loved how natural it is, just that they're all acoustic instruments. And so like we have one, the bass is does plug in, but it is naturally acoustic. And I loved that part of it, that it's just the music is coming from the people,
Mm-hmm.
which was really neat. And I feel like it just creates a really unique sound, which is fun.
That's awesome. Okay, so let me ask you, what part of your faith played into what you guys did?
Oh, I love that question. I felt like music was such a unique way to spread the gospel and to bring honor to God in a way that people were willing to listen, even if they weren't necessarily Christians. We were able to use it a lot as outreach. We would go to a place and do kind of a performance in a park, and people would just come and listen. And you were able to put a lot of gospel messages into the music that people might not listen to if you were just talking to them, but they'll listen to the song. And I felt like that was just such a unique way to minister. And I loved that about our music ministry.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you believe in God and you believe in Jesus, that he's the savior of the world, you're going to want to tell people about it. And so,
For sure.
like you said, music is such a unique way to share a message and share your story with people. So what would you encourage someone who's considering taking up an instrument? What would you encourage them to do?
Oh, I'd say go for it and put your heart into it.
Yeah. Do you think the hardest part is the practicing or the performing?
It's all a part. My teacher and mentor would tell me that you have not completely learned a song until you've performed it. And
so true.
Which is scary because you don't want to get up there and mess it up, but that's all a part of the process of learning the song.
Absolutely. And I've had quite a few guests on here before who have shared that if you have just some kind of talent or ability, you need to share it, and use it for God. Use that gift for God. Use it in your church. Use it to tell other people about why you love God. Those are great ways to use your talents. Like you said, you don't just have to talk about it. You can also use the talents you have. So that's really encouraging. Well, speaking of encouragement, I know there's some families listening who are doing homeschooling right now, or they're considering homeschooling. How would you encourage those families?
Yeah, I would say that with the homeschooling and what I learned growing up and going from homeschooling to college, and there's a song that we sang. It's called All Along. And there's a line in it that says, the changing seasons of our lives are not left up to chance. And I loved that line. And just realizing that through each grade that you go into, through each changing season, each changing stage of life, just realizing that God is the same through all of that. And he's the same God when we're a kid. He's the same God when we're a teenager. He's the same God when we become a young adult. And that was just something that really stuck with me through my changing seasons. Is
Yeah.
that they're not left up to chance. God goes before us. My favorite verse is Deuteronomy 31:8, and it says, "And the Lord, He it is that doth go before thee. He will be with thee. He will not fail thee, neither forsake thee. Fear not, neither be dismayed." And that just helped me, well, when I was going through the changing seasons um, and traveling and realizing that God goes before us and that we don't have to be afraid of that.
Yeah. I love that verse. Will you share that verse again?
Yeah, it's Deuteronomy 31:8. "And the
Okay.
Lord, He it is that doth go before thee. He will be with thee. He will not fail thee, neither forsake thee. Fear not, neither be dismayed."
I love that. And that's, Deuteronomy was the time in the Bible where the people of Israel were about to go into the promised land, and they were following Moses and Joshua. And
Yeah.
he was saying, like, you don't have to worry about this. Like, God is with you.
Yes.
So I think we can carry that promise, just like you said, that God is unchanging and we can trust in him.
Yes.
That's so encouraging. Well, I love that you've shared all of this with us. This has been really encouraging, I think, and just good to know about for all those families considering continuing this homeschool idea.
Yeah.
So thank you for being on the show and sharing that with us today.
You're so welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, I always like to ask my guests to share a memory from when they were a kid. You've shared a lot of those, but do you have another memory from when you were a kid you want to share with us today?
Yes. So this isn't a specific memory necessarily, but I just remember times when we were driving down the road and one sibling would be playing an instrument, one would be singing off key, one would be laughing, one would be sleeping, one's reading. And I would just say in those day-to-day moments, just embracing the chaos, making the most of every day, because they really will become some of the most precious memories you have as you grow up and just move forward. You'll treasure those moments with your family and your siblings.
I love that. Yeah. And how introspective for you as a child to stop and look around and
Yeah.
realize those moments like, I should remember this. So that's good encouragement for anybody. Just take a moment to remember
Yeah.
what's you're experiencing. And I think that's something you'll carry with you the day to day. Good encouragement. Thank you, Hannah.
Oh, thank you, Kirsten.
What a nice person she is. I loved meeting her. I loved all the stories she told us about her travels with her family. How cool is that to go all over the states and all over the world sharing the gospel through music? I love when she was talking about how music was a way to tell people about God in a way that they were willing to listen, even if they hadn't heard about God before. And that's a really interesting thing. So if you play an instrument or you like music, what a fun way you can use your music and your talents to share the love of God. I just love that encouragement. And I love when she was sharing that verse, Deuteronomy 31:28, talking about how God is unchanging and He is always going to be with us and He's always going to go before us. And so we're remembering that when everything is changing around us, the seasons of life are changing, or the summer is changing, or your travel plans are changing, remember that God is unchanging and He goes with us and He goes before us. That was such a good word to hear today. Well, if you'd like to learn more about Hannah and her story and all the fun things she has going on her blog, you can check that out at myhappyhomeschooling.com, and that's where you can get a lot of good information. She's also a part of an incredible homeschooling network called The Old Schoolhouse, and they have the Old Schoolhouse magazine and schoolhouseteachers.com, which is sponsoring this episode. So I really hope you'll check out all these resources if you are considering homeschooling. Such a good thing to have all of this at your disposal. So please go check these out. I think you'll really enjoy them. Well, now it's time for the kids only segment. This is the part of the show where you get to be on the podcast. So I'm excited to introduce you to my friend Benjamin.
What did the sheet say to the bed? Don't worry, I got you covered.
Got you covered. Thank you, Benjamin. That was a good one. Well, hey, I'd love to hear your favorite joke or maybe an encouraging quote that you like from a book or a movie, or maybe you have a Bible verse that you want to share. You can find all the information about how to send that to me through my social media. I'm on Facebook at the Collide Kids Podcast or on Instagram at Collide Kids Pod. I'd also love to hear from you. And hey, come check out my new website. It's thecollidekidspodcast.com. Be sure to subscribe and follow this podcast so that new episodes will automatically load each week into whatever podcast app you're using. And if you're listening on Apple, it would mean so much to me if you would leave a rating and a review. That helps other people find out about the show, and then they can listen too and be a part of the fun, right? Well, we have one more episode next week, and then we are taking a break for the month of July. So don't miss out on next week's episode with Scott Hamilton. It's going to be so much fun. Hey, I hope you are having a great summer, and I hope you are making the most of every day. Remember that wherever you go, whatever you do, God goes before you and He is with you. Hey, in case no one has told you today, let me be the first to remind you that God loves you so much. Thanks for listening.
You don't have to go very far looking for bad news because somehow it just finds you. So finding peace in the chaos can be really difficult, but it doesn't have to be because the River mobile app exists. The River is a Christian music radio station dedicated to playing music to help you get through life's toughest moments or life's happiest moments and everywhere in between. And all from artists who love Jesus and are real people just like you. Listening is easy. You can download it wherever you get apps from. Just search 1049 The River or listen online at riverradio.com. And know that The River is proud to partner with the Collide Kids Podcast.